An American tourist noticed discrepancies between what he ordered and the $30,000 bill, so he immediately called the waiter over, hoping he could give him a reasonable explanation. He clearly did not order any alcohol, so why was there a bottle of 1982 Lafite on the bill? Yes, the man was instantly speechless. How could he not know whether he drank alcohol or not, just as he was about to get angry? As he collapsed, another grenade was thrown in from outside the door. He froze for more than a second before the man snapped out of his... But by then it was already too late. The deafening explosion instantly swallowed everything around, but this was not the end. A man suddenly appeared through the smoke and fired 2 shots at the person who had just gotten up. Even passing strangers fell under his gun. The next second, another accomplice walked out of the shadows. They did not hesitate at all and boldly walked straight into the restaurant, then decisively raised their guns, aiming at the people who survived the explosion. Meanwhile, the Americans hiding under the tables did not dare to breathe, afraid of making even the slightest sound that might draw the attention of the 2 terrorists listening to the dense gunfire outside. The man knew every bullet fired represented a human life. At that moment, a survivor tried to escape, but was instantly locked onto by the terrorists. The 2 moved like emotionless machines. Even after killing dozens of people in just 1 minute, there was no change in their expressions. The man watching everything through a gap. You that waiting to die meant he would be next. So a dangerous spot suddenly came to mind. While the terrorists were immersed in the thrill of killing, he forcefully pushed his girlfriend out, then hunched over and ran outside in a very strange posture. Luckily, there were tables and chairs as cover, which kept them from being discovered. Although they managed to escape, the man could not shake the fear in his heart. What he did not know was that the moment he ran out of the restaurant marked the beginning of his nightmare. Surrounded by the crowd, the man and his girlfriend arrived at the entrance of the Taj Hotel. They thought they were safe here. After all, this was the most luxurious hotel in India, so the security had to be top tier. But no one noticed that 2 men followed behind them, dressed just like the restaurant attackers, as if they had never seen such a luxurious building. One friendly-looking man kept expressing amazement that a hotel could be decorated so lavishly, but the splendor in front of him did not distract him. He never forgot the real purpose of coming to India. After exchanging looks with the 2 accomplices upstairs, they officially began their mission. They placed their fully packed backpacks in an inconspicuous corner. With their backs to the crowd, they pulled out an AK-47. Without any warning at all, 4 men suspected to be from Pakistan started a massacre. They did not choose targets, they did not care about nationality, and they certainly did not distinguish right from wrong. Anyone within the range of the AK became a victim of the 4. AJ watched the horrifying scene in the lobby through the glass, his eyes filled with fear and despair. But as a hotel staff member, he still forced himself to stay calm, first calming the guests in the restaurant. His position was only a few meters from the lobby. If he made any noise and caught their attention, the outcome was obvious at this moment. The American who escaped the restaurant once again fell into danger. He thought the terrorists before were already brutal enough. Never did he imagine there were even worse ones. Just 1 minute ago, nearly 100 people were gathered in the lobby. Now only corpses covered the floor. Wait. The man hiding behind the pillar did not dare make a sound. He could only silently pray they would not see him. But based on the terrorists' movement path, being discovered was only a matter of time. Another crazy idea struck him. Looking at his girlfriend hiding behind the pillar as well, he urgently waved for her to run. Encouraged by him, the woman took advantage of the attacker's distraction and turned to flee, but the terrorists were not blind. How could they miss such a large target? A burst of bullets immediately swept over. Seeing his girlfriend fate unknown, the man collapsed to the ground in fear. But luckily, the terrorists' attention was drawn away. Seeing no survivors left in the lobby, the 4 terrorists prepared to begin the next round of killing. But just then a phone rang. When the terrorist pressed answer, the mastermind finally revealed himself. पहला दर्जा मुकम्मल हुआ भाईजान नोट कर चलना शाबाश बढ़िया काम कीता ए रोंग कर फोन अपनी जेब बचाए रख में इना दी चीखा अपने कना नाल सिनना चाहना इना उच इंसानियत नदी कभी चीज नहीं है अब्दुल्ला ए याद रखें हाँ जी भाई कोई भी अल्लाह तर से दिया खबीर ने बिल्कुल पयना अल्लाह हो. The terrorist turned to look at the second floor. He knew there were more living people waiting there. Just thinking about it, even his steps up the stairs became joyful. And this entire scene was clearly seen by the front desk clerk hiding behind the counter. Without hesitation, she immediately grabbed the phone and started calling every room on the second floor. But it was already too late. The terrorists had begun knocking on doors and lied that they were room service the moment a door was opened. After casually glancing at the staff member lying on the floor, the terrorist raised his gun again and killed all the guests, enjoying themselves inside. And it was not just this one room. Anyone who opened the door was brutally attacked at this moment. An American woman holding a baby also heard the knocking. At the same time, she received a warning from downstairs, telling her not to open the door, but she did not hear the continued persuasion from the other side. Her hand was already on the door bolt the next second. Luckily, the one who rushed in was not a terrorist, but a cleaner covered in blood. She desperately searched for a place to hide. The woman was stunned by this sudden event until a gunshot rang out. She snapped back to reality and quickly hid inside the closet. But the sounds made by the baby made her extremely nervous. Before she could think of any solution, 2 terrorists followed the trail of the cleaner into this presidential suite. Seeing their vicious armed appearance, combined with the earlier gunshot, she instantly understood what was happening outside and was so scared, she did not dare breathe. She gently moved the clothes rack beside her, soothing the baby in her arms, because if she made even the slightest sound, she did not dare imagine what would happen next. Fortunately, the 2 terrorists were distracted by the luxury of the room, so their attention was not on the closet. Now she could only pray they would leave soon. The longer they stayed, the more dangerous it would be for her and the baby, but the more she feared, the more it came true. One of them seemed to find the cleaner's hiding place. Come out seeing the cleaner did not open the door. The terrorist resorted to violence. The baby, whose mouth was covered, began to convulse if this continued for 1 more minute. Even without being discovered, the baby would suffocate facing the cleaner's pleas. The terrorist showed no mercy, but after dealing with the target, the 2 did not rush to leave. Everything here was new to them. Even an ordinary toilet became something worth examining. But then, one of them sensed something off and started approaching the closet. Just as he was about to open it, "Oh, सामने आवे की टट्टी." "होना रे machine में." At this moment, the mastermind called again, directly telling them not to waste time and to leave an unforgettable wound on India. With the order from above, the 2 reluctantly left the room. Although she watched the terrorists walk out, the woman still did not dare move. She waited nearly 10 seconds before rushing out of the closet, but she did not immediately remove her hand from the baby's mouth. Instead, she quickly opened the shower glass door. Once inside, the baby finally cried out loud in an instant. The cries filled the entire room, but luckily the glass door had sound insulation. Terrified, the woman hurriedly pulled out her phone and called the baby's parents. As a nanny, she had done everything she could, and David, who received the call, finally sighed in relief. But his child was still in danger. He had to do something, so despite AJ trying to stop him, David left the restaurant alone and went to the lobby. What he saw was a floor full of bodies. Only then did he realize how horrific the situation was. But there was no time to think. He quickly ran to the elevator and pressed the button for the 4th floor. As the elevator doors slowly closed, he finally relaxed. But before he could even feel relieved for a second, he saw the 3rd floor button light up. His brain froze for a moment. Before reacting, he tried to press the 2nd floor button, but it was already too late. Luckily, there was a service cart behind him to hide, so he immediately hid behind it. Seeing a cart blocking the doorway, the terrorists gave up using the elevator. After they slowly walked away, David forcefully pulled the cart into the elevator. By the time they realized it was too late, David successfully reached the 4th floor and opened the room with sound. When he saw the baby, the weight on his heart was finally lifted. But he knew the terrorists must have seen the elevator button and already knew he was hiding on the 4th floor. Staying here would only lead to discovery. This place was not safe. They had to move immediately. Meanwhile, outside, the hotel was already in chaos. Although Mumbai was the largest city in India and also the richest, some locals even believed it surpassed New York. Yet under such conditions, there was no emergency plan for such a large-scale attack. Without their own special forces, they had to call troops from New Delhi, 800 miles away, although local police acted immediately. With only 4 officers, they did not dare act rashly and could only wait for the NSG to arrive, which would take hours by then. Everyone might be dead, but at this moment, someone suddenly jumped down from upstairs. it was the American who survived the restaurant. While being rescued, he also urged them to save his girlfriend. The police station outside were puzzled. According to the survivors, there were only 4 terrorists, yet they occupied a hotel with thousands of people. So the highest-ranking police chief decided to try, and led 4 subordinates inside quietly, but unknown to them the moment they stepped in. They were already detected, unaware they were in danger. They continued moving forward until a grenade appeared among them. Everyone froze after a loud explosion. They were met with countless bullets. 4 officers died on the spot, leaving only 2 plainclothes detectives barely holding on. Because they underestimated the enemy. They paid a heavy price. The chief and 1 partner fled in shame. By this time, 5 hours had passed since the terrorists took the hotel. Almost all reporters in the city surrounded the entrance. Everyone was watching how this attack would end. According to statistics, 78 people were already dead, nearly 200 were injured, and the numbers kept rising. Meanwhile, the executive chef inside the hotel called the police again, but the response left him in disbelief, because the Black Cat commandos had not even left New Delhi. 5 hours had already passed. Even walking, they should have arrived. Luckily, their location was the hotel's disaster safe room, strong enough to rival a small bunker, so they could hold out a few more hours. But just then, there was a knock at the door. Because of previous lessons, the chef did not open immediately until AJ's voice came through. Then he let him in, followed by over a dozen restaurant guests. That place had become a survivor's garden. For everyone's safety, Ajay had to relocate them. But among the group was a girl with a shoulder injury. She was the girlfriend who had been abandoned. It was not fatal, but her cries of pain increased the risk of exposure. Someone immediately suggested throwing her out. Because if they attracted the terrorists' attention, this place would become a target. They could not let everyone die for her. As anger rose, AJ stepped forward and told the chef he would risk taking the girl out of the hotel, since continued bleeding would also threaten her life. With AJ stepping up, no one else objected. To avoid terrorist searches, they could only use the stairs. But after just a few steps, the girl collapsed from her injuries. Coincidentally, 2 plainclothes officers also escaped inside, but since they had never met, both sides thought the others were terrorists. In panic, the girl's adrenaline surged and she rushed toward the exit. The next second, gunshots rang out. Knowing terrorists were outside, the 3 were shot and quickly began climbing upward. In the end, the girl did not escape death and was brutally killed. लगत दी है जी चपानी भी और साह दी है पर लबास अमेरिका नहीं है जी बहुत अच्छा है सानो अमेरिका नहीं चाय देने पर जिंदा आखिरी वार तू सानो अमीर ते अहम. For the terrorists, Americans were the best shields, because no one wanted to offend a superpower. If someone with American citizenship died on Indian soil, the consequences would be unbearable. More hostages meant safer escape later. But just then, a figure flashed ahead. He chased after it. It was David relocating with no escape left. He opened a utility room and shoved the nanny and baby inside, leaving himself to face the terrorists. Just when he thought he would die, the ruthless terrorists unexpectedly became reasonable, though he suffered minor injuries. Because he was American, he did not lose his life like the others. Meanwhile, AJ and 2 plainclothes officers reached the control room. Seeing the footage, all 3 were shot, because everywhere they looked were bodies, far exceeding reported numbers. But the next second, Ajay was terrified by one screen. 2 terrorists had found the safe room. Inside were nearly 100 people. If it fell, no one would survive. At this moment, the chef let his guard down. Thinking the knock was more guests, he already took out the key. Ajay urgently grabbed the phone. Watching the monitor, cold sweat soaked his back. Don't open the door, it's them. The sound of a cup hitting the ground confirmed to the terrorists. There were survivors. They sprayed the lock with bullets. Luckily, the door was made of special material and could hold for a while. But the 3 in the control room were desperate. At the terrorists' level of destruction, the safe room would fall eventually. The 2 detectives knew they had to act. If they waited for New Delhi forces, the hotel would be a slaughterhouse. They quietly moved near the safe room, seeing only one person a detective was about to shoot. When 2 more terrorists appeared with reinforcements, the door would not last long. As the situation worsened, the detective fired decisively, risking his life, drawing all their attention and wounding 1 terrorist. But against their return fire, they were no match still. They completed the task and fled in panic. During the pursuit, Ajay returned to the safe room. But it was no longer safe. once the terrorists realized everyone would face disaster. The only option was to escape. During the chase, there was only one chance. A decision had to be made fast. Every second wasted increased the risk of failure. The chef finally made up his mind and LED everyone to flee. But just as they prepared to leave, one guest made a phone call. He contacted reporters outside and exposed the escape plan. "What are you doing? I was trying to get help find our location. You're supposed to be on my side. Hey, we've just been informed of a daring escape now underway at the Targhee, with a report of up to 100 guests breaking out. Because of this guest, the plan was exposed. What no one expected was that the terrorists were always in contact outside. The mastermind informed them. Realizing they were tricked, the four rushed up immediately, feeling like fools without hesitation. They threw a grenade, blowing open the weakened door. The fleeing guests heard the explosion and rushed downstairs. But soon disaster struck. Everyone only cared about themselves. Causing a jam, those left behind were like live targets and were gunned down in groups. The pursuing terrorists went berserk, killing everyone they saw without mercy. When everyone reached the exit, the Black Cat commandos arrived after 10 hours and repelled the terrorists. Saving half the survivors, the special forces from New Delhi also arrived and surrounded the hotel. The mastermind knew the four were doomed. So he ordered the hostage guards to kill everyone. They were no longer useful. After the final act, his mind seemed broken. He wandered into the lobby like a zombie and was instantly killed by soldiers. The remaining three met their end shouting a slogan. No, I don't believe it. Because this film was based on real events. There was no protagonist. Whether you were a billionaire or an influential American, no one escaped death, those who survived. For ordinary, unnoticed people, especially when the infant survived. The film seemed elevated, however. This attack was not limited to the Taj Hotel. 10 terrorists crossed the border. They carried out massacres at a train station and a mall. The entire rescue was recorded as a negative example. According to official statistics, at least 172 people died, over 350 were injured, from November 26 to 29th. 2008, it took 3 days to end the attack. 9 terrorists were killed. 1 was captured. The mastermind remains at large. The film ends with AJ walking home. This is the 2018 film Hotel Mumbai. Many people may wonder what was their purpose. 10 young men with bright futures. Yet they chose this path. According to their conversations with the mastermind, the attack was more like a performance meant to show their capabilities and attract global attention. This was the goal of the mastermind. But for the executors, it carried a different meaning. When police asked the captured terrorist why he chose to die, he gave this answer, "AP mere saath kuch bhi karo, mujhko malum nahi hai saab."